David Arvin. How's it going, my man?
I'm doing good, my man. How are you?
I'm good. We're here to talk about customer experience on the Mitchell Port Unleashed podcast.
Yes, let's talk about that. It's kind of funny. We've been talking about customer service for 40 years, maybe 50 years. And so I made a conscious decision because I write about this. I speak to clients as well. I don't want to do customer service because, my God, if you don't know how to treat people, right, that's your mom and dad's fault, right? Your manager and others, but the experience is really different. So I'd love to talk about customer experience. It's a new discipline. It's a related discipline, but it is pivotal. It is instrumental in business success today.
Yes. So, what does that customer experience mean to you? Because I hear
Right.
customer service all the time, right?
Sure.
But the experience aspect and stuff like
Why?
that.
I think what's really important is what it means to everybody, right? I mean, service, if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur or somebody in business, the service is what we provide, right? We provide a good service. We know how to treat people. We've been talking for 50 years. If you're a staff member and you see a piece of paper crumbled up on the floor, whose job is it to pick it up? Oh, it's everyone's. We know that. We've been talking about it forever. The experience is different. How we experience doing business with companies has changed dramatically over the last 20 years, even more so over in the last couple of years during COVID. There's this whole new generation of amenities and accommodations and flexibility and delivery and all of these things. How we experience doing business is different. The question today isn't are you good? I mean, everybody's got to be good at what they do, right? If you weren't, you would be outed very quickly on Yelp or TripAdvisor or Rotten Tomatoes or Glassdoor or something else. It's how easy are you to work with? How easy is it to reach you or to buy from you? And the companies who have a business model that was created 20, 30 years ago, right? Here's how they buy from us, here's how they research, and I guess everything certainly changed with the internet. And then here's how they inquire and purchase and pay and deliver and all of that, right? If that was created 5 years ago or longer, the world has passed you by because we've learned how to do business differently. We've come to expect things differently. I ask audiences all the time, I said, any of you notice that your customers or clients are a little more impatient, a little more demanding, and they all laugh like, this welcome to my life kind of look on their face? Well, all of us have. Um, the question now is, how simple is your process? How frustrating is it to reach a real person to buy? Think about how we buy today. Oftentimes it's one click, right? There's been this big shift from selling to buying. People used to sell things to us. We go to an appliance store and somebody would explain to us the features of a refrigerator. Now we go online and we buy it, or we walk into a Best Buy or something else and we buy it. The question is, how complicated is that process? The real key today, assuming quality, right? You got to be good at what you do. You have to be ridiculously easy to do business with, right? We tend to say no over pretty stupid things. You go to a restaurant with your friends, you say, "Yeah, can I get? I'd like to do the chicken Caesar, please. Can I get shrimp instead of chicken?" And what's the answer, right? "Oh, I'm so sorry, no menu substitutions." Why? Why? Like literally, it's a real question. Just put a different protein. Charge them a couple extra bucks, they'll be thrilled. But we get so locked into this is our policy, this is the way we do things. That has to change. And if it doesn't, you're going to find yourself like Toys R Us. And you're going to find yourself like so many others that are falling by the wayside because we found different, easier, better, faster, simpler solutions to what it is we want to buy.
No, absolutely. And there's so much to unpack here. I feel like we all go into Walmart and we look at their service, we look at their experience and things like that. And I always feel like there's sometimes you're looking for things down an aisle. It may not be there. You go ask a worker, you're like, hey, where's this? And you get some like this nonchalant response. And I'm like, well, wait, are you guys not trained? Are you guys not like, make me feel welcome here? You know what I mean? I work
Right.
retail and they always say to me, my guest experience is always top notch because one of the biggest things I always do, I always make the customer when they're coming in, make them feel welcome and have like a
Yeah,
regular
absolutely.
type of conversation and things like that. Why do you think a lot of these businesses and a lot of these, what do you say, bosses and things like that don't implement certain structures and principles and procedures of making the employees be able to address what customer experience is and
Sure.
have those people coming in.
Well, it's not a lack of information. I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time. It's a lack of follow through. It's a lack of culture and standards, saying this is how we do things, right? This is what we believe. And then you get some of the best companies, the Amazons and the Disneys and others who do it on a level that the bar is set really, really high. Um, Dave Logan wrote a great book called Tribal Leadership, and he talks about sort of the varying levels of leadership. And he says, and each level is marked by conversation. And what is the conversation, right? And at the lowest level is, he called it level one, which is street gangs, that kind of a thing as well, those organizations. And the conversation is life sucks, right? And so what does anything matter? And the next one, level one, which is sort of my life sucks, which is TSA and working for the Department of Motor Vehicles and things like that. You get a lot of people who don't care because they don't. I mean, they have a tough job. They have a tough life. They have managers who don't care because they aren't really a for-profit business. It's a government or things like that as well. So to answer your question, I think we know it starts at the top, but it has to go beyond here's how we treat people. You know, the bigger issue at Walmart is there is no service. I mean, it's kind of their model, right? Low prices, high volume. They can't afford to have a lot of people, and everybody's struggling to hire. That's not really the issue. The issue is how easy are they to do business with? And I'll give you an example. So a couple of weeks ago, there's a big Walmart near where we live, and that's where we shop for groceries. And so during COVID, we had 3 teenagers home, eating us out of house and home. I had to put on a mask, go to Walmart, and my shopping cart is overflowing with groceries, right? I get to the front, and the manager directs me to self-checkout. And I'm looking at her like with this look on my face, and I'm thinking, I don't work here, right? I'm not trying to be demeaning. I'm horrible. I'm horrible. Every item is an unexpected item in the bagging area, right? And the people have to come over. I'm really bad at it. I just want the option. Just give me a real person. My wife, she loves self-checkout, right? I understand. I'm not naive. But what they say is, we give you a choice, but it's not a choice. It's not when you have 23 self-checkout lanes and 1 staffed checkout lane with 9 carts waiting in line. It's crap. It's not true. It's social engineering. They're trying to get you to do business the way they want because it saves them money. That's a bad experience for me. And at some point, you know, the bean counters like it because we were able to fire so many workers and just make it all self-checkout. But at some point, the law of diminishing return comes into play. And at some point, the experience is so bad and so frustrating that we just go somewhere else. And Rory, the biggest source of lost revenue for anybody in business, the biggest source of lost revenue is the customer you never knew about, right? They drove by and they didn't stop, or they called on the phone and they hung up because they didn't want to work for your HR department and try and figure out your voicemail system, or they came in and they left without being engaged, or worse yet, they went to your website. I mean, my God, you got them to your website and they left. And they didn't leave their information. They didn't click on the things and you have no idea who those people are. You have no idea how many people you lost. So it's incumbent upon us in business to take a step back, walk our customer's journey. How simple is it? How frustrating is it? You can have $1 billion brand, phenomenal products and services. And if we have to wait, by and large, we won't. I mean, my God, most of the time we get our groceries delivered. If you haven't done it before, it is awesome. You know, we just go online. It's free. We just sit down with the iPad and we just choose all the items we want. And next thing you know, we got $600 worth of groceries on our front doorstep. This is the first time in history where convenience has replaced quality as the primary driver of purchases. I want you to think about that. Now, to be clear for everybody listening, it's not that quality is unimportant. Quality is incredibly important. It's just assumed. I spoke at a conference. It's what I do for a living, right? I'm a keynote speaker at conferences. I consult, and I'm getting ready to go on stage. And right before me was the CEO, and he was speaking. It was a big all-company meeting, and he got them all worked up. And here's our goals for the year. And the very last thing he said was, "And remember, at the end of the day, it's about quality. Quality wins." And everybody goes crazy. And I was burying my face in my hands because I couldn't disagree more. Quality, at the end of the day, it's not about quality. At the beginning of the day, it's about quality. Quality is the entry fee. But at the end of the day, It's about competitive advantage. It's not what do you do well, what do you do better than others who do it well? And today, better is faster, simpler, more accommodating, and more convenient. Like I said, today, convenient beats quality. As long as quality is there, quality is the entry fee, right? It's the foundation. When companies still believe that their quality is what's winning out, the reality is, and I tell audiences and leaders all the time, wake up. Your competitors are good. They're all good, or they wouldn't be in business. And here's the worst thing, Rory, the worst thing about competitors. Oh, it's so frustrating. The worst thing is most of them are very, very nice people. Listen, we're all just busting our butts trying to do a good job. I hear leaders all the time, you know what makes us different? We really listen to our customers and we tailor our solutions to meet their individual needs. Are you kidding? Grow up. Everybody listens. You wouldn't be in business. You really think you're the only one that listens? Today, it's about eliminating friction in the buying process. Get people what they want faster. Say yes to things that you used to say no to. I'm not asking anybody to not be profitable. You know, you can't stop a major manufacturing line for a one-off, but we've got to empower our people on the front line to make reasonable decisions, right? Um, I do a lot of CEO roundtable groups, and invariably in most of those groups, there's a banker, financial services, a banker. And I used to ask them all the time back when I did more marketing than customer experience. And I'd say, what do you think your competitive advantage is? And 100% of bankers say the exact same thing. They say, it's this, it's the relationship. We know our customers by name. Okay, I'll give you that. But what happens when 95% of our bank transactions are on our phone, right? They're scrambling to try and figure out what the real relationship. We used to stand in line at the bank during banking hours, right? You couldn't get money on the weekends before ATMs. We'd stand in line, we'd deposit a check, we'd sign the back of it, right? Fill out a deposit form, right? Now I speak at an event, they give me a nice check. I sit in the back of the Uber, I take a picture of it, it's deposited. My daughter's off at college, she needs money. She texts me, right? And by the way, her ringtone is a cash register sound because that's she's home at Christmas. And you hear this cha-ching, and she goes, "What's that?" I said, "Apparently it's you texting me from the couch." And she goes, "Ah, a cash register, Dad, really?" I said, "Well, generally, Sydney, you just want money." She goes, "That's really insulting." I said, "Well," I said, what do you need?" She goes, "Oh, never mind." Right? But listen, here's the point, Rory. None of those interactions, those transactions involve somebody asking the question, "So what are your plans for the weekend?" Right? You know that in retail, right? But my experience with the bank, it's no longer about that relationship for most. It's transactional. So now they're scrambling to try and figure out what is their real competitive advantage. My life is easy because I can just take a picture of my check now, right? And deposit. That's my experience. It's also not only customer experience, CX, it's UX, it's user experience. How simple, right? We will all ultimately be our own password, the biometrics, right? The retinal scan, our thumbprint, our facial recognition. Most of these disruptions from a customer experience perspective are awesome for customers, right? The only reason that they stick is because they're better for us. We like them more, right? But it's really incumbent on companies and organizations to see what's the best of the best out there, simplify things for your customers. Don't make them do your job, and be ridiculously easy to do business with.
There's so much there to unpack, and I love these type of conversations because they're wholesome, conscious conversations that I feel like the audience, if because we're all working, unless you're an entrepreneur, you're working also too, but we can all learn, right? So
Yeah.
my question that comes to you here is, in this realm that you're in, where do you see it going in the next, let's start small to perfect big, I like to say, the next 5 years? You think things are going to improve? Have we adapted to the norm now because what we had to deal with in the
That's
last
a
two
great
years?
question.
Yeah.
What does improve mean, right? By whose standard? Here's what I do know is that things will continue to change and morph. And in every case, the advancements, the new amenities, the new accommodations will benefit customers. Okay. And the ones that don't won't survive. Right. People were asking during COVID, and I know these podcasts are very evergreen. It's all post COVID, but they would say, when are things going to get back to normal? And of course, the answer is there is a new normal or a new next or a touchless tomorrow. Right. There were certain things that came about during COVID that we we really like. Right. We got better at Zoom and things like that, and the ones that didn't are going to struggle. You know, when you're on a call and somebody still has palm trees behind them, and you're like, "Oh, look, Kevin has palm trees. That's so funny. Kevin's on a desert island." It's not funny, Kevin. It's not funny anymore. It's been 2 years. If I see another palm tree or Golden Gate Bridge, my God, I'm going to open a vein. I swear to God. It's just get over it. It's not funny anymore. You've had 2 years to be good. If you're on a Zoom call with several colleagues and one of them has their camera off because they just got back from the gym, turn your camera on, take it seriously like everybody else on the call. So to answer your question, where's it going to go is those who don't recognize the changes and embrace them and get good at them, they will struggle. Businesses that don't recognize a whole new level of conveniences and still make it very difficult for customers to get what they want or talk to a person, they will struggle. I'm not so arrogant as to say that they're going to go out of business, but they will not have the advantages of the companies that recognize how do we simplify a process? How do we take a 14-step process to get the customers what they want and cut it in half? That will create competitive advantage. In a marketplace where so many players are good at what they do, where are the differentiators that we care about as customers, right? Those are the ones that will win. And some of the ones who are resistant will say, yeah, we take a little bit longer, but it's worth it. Okay, you keep trying to convince yourself that, right? Or we're more expensive, but it's worth it. Well, here's the question. Do your customers want something that's better at a better price? Because sometimes good enough at a lower price, right? Or even faster at a higher price is worth it. So I think where things are going to go, I think they're going to continue to be more convenient. I think we're going to see a continued shift towards do-it-yourself models, but I think the pendulum will start to swing back because at some point there will be so much frustration from a lack of help, right? Chatbots. And I'm not against chatbots. I don't like them, but I understand why they're there, right? It's sort of an AI driven FAQ. As long as there's an off ramp to a real person. This is my passion. As I've been speaking, and I've spoken in 24 countries around the world. Even during COVID, I did 87 virtual presentations. I'm back on the road, but I talked to a lot of overseas and companies that are pushing AI, chatbots, all of this stuff. At some point, right, we're going to, just because we can have a conversation with a computer and make an appointment, doesn't mean that everybody wants to. And people can talk about millennials and but at any one time, we have 3 or 4 generations that we are serving simultaneously, right? We're serving people in their 70s and 80s. We're serving the boomers. We're serving the Xers and the Gen Y and whatever comes after that. Very few companies can have a business model that only serves one age group. So the future is omni-channel, right? Omni-channel is no matter how they want to get in touch with you, let them get in touch with you. No matter how they want to buy, with a person, without a person, if you have a model that supports them. I don't expect that I can get my hair cut at 4 o'clock in the morning, but I absolutely expect I can make an appointment to do so, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's exciting for me where things are going to go. I don't know that the people are very good at predicting it, but I think it's safe to say that things will become more convenient, more things available online, more things being able to be delivered. The things that you would normally get in the mall, you'll be able to get delivered from the Gap. We're already seeing companies converting their back room into shipping and drop shipping from retail and things like that as well. That will continue. And the ones who fight it, the ones who refuse to acknowledge that their cheese was moved, or have and I hope this comes across right, have a level of arrogance that our stuff is so much better, our stuff is so worth it, we're the ones who truly listen to our customers, you will struggle, right? And so I'm one that I love the changes. We can lament the loss of Toys R Us, right? We can be nostalgic. I challenge anyone listening or watching this right now to tell me that it's hard for you to find toys, right? It's not hard to find toys. The reason that they went out of business is there's a better and easier way to buy toys, whether it's Target, whether it's Amazon, whether it's something else online. The companies and tens of thousands of companies fail every year. Most of them that will fail will be because, I mean, there's a lot of reasons from funding and whatever else, but because they aren't better than something that's currently available.
So
So
true.
everybody look at your competitors, look at all the ways that we can buy, find a way to be ridiculously easy to buy from.
It takes me back to Blockbuster days and Netflix. And look what they did.
Oh yeah,
Everything has gone digital. Video games have gone digital. Our tech is everything you can do is one stop shop online. That's why you need Wi-Fi connection or a hard line somewhere else.
absolutely.
I bring a question to you because I see behind you why customers leave that book. How can entrepreneurs now learn from that book that is placed behind you? And what are some tips that you can give them as far as if they're getting into the buy and sell metrics, interacting with
Sure.
customers and things like that, my friend?
Well, the easy answer, of course, is buy the book. You know, we're in 7 languages and everything else. No, but here's the reality: is just because something works doesn't mean it works for them. Just because you can buy a list and with one click email 100,000 people and you think how incredibly efficient that was, doesn't mean it's effective. Put yourself, this is service empathy, right? Service empathy 101. Put yourself in the place of the customer. Do they feel that was impersonal, right? The number one reason why customers leave is because they can. Right? We've never been in a time of more choices. If you're at Disneyland and it's $15 for a hamburger, it's a captive audience. You want the hamburger, you're going to pay 15 bucks because you're within the walls of Disneyland or Disney World. The rest of us aren't. We are in the marketplace with an astonishing amount of choices, right? We can buy online, we can do it ourselves, we can have it delivered from our local grocery store, we can drive through, we can do app ordering, we can do so many of these things. Remember that you're not the only choice. People are deciding whether to buy from you. They're hungry and they can choose from a lot of places. So the reason that customers leave is, and some of the, I mean, of course, some of them might because they feel insulted or it was a really bad experience. But in most cases, people don't leave because they're tremendously unhappy, right? There's very few really bad experiences. They leave because something else was faster, something else was closer, something else. I mean, I think in the book I've got 24 different reasons why customers leave, and in almost every case, the business themselves thought they were doing this is just good business, right? And some of it's just sort of this impersonal. Listen, it's just business, but it's not just business for your customers. It's personal. Everything's personal. So in the book and in my newer book, which is called The Morning Huddle, it's basically conversations. It's like think again. Here's at the end of every chapter, it's got 3 things. So I lay out a problem. Here's one of the things that makes us frustrated. Here's why. Here's a story behind it. And at the end of every chapter, it says, here's why you do it. Right. So here's the business rationale. But here's why we hate it as a customer. And then here's a better approach. So I give them suggestions of here's a way to tweak it and modify that. So it is diagnostic, it is prescriptive, right? But it's also optimistic and encouraging. Um, as I said, the biggest challenge is the customer you didn't know that you didn't know about, the one that got frustrated and left. And in most cases, it's pretty simple things to fix. And so that's why I love what I do. I love working with organizations. I love speaking and consulting and helping them look at their customer journey from an outside perspective, and not just about efficiency. I think most companies have that down. They understand the metrics behind profitability, but do they understand the attitudes and the behaviors and the preferences of their changing customers so they can deliver what they've traditionally delivered in a way that their customers prefer? And the ones that get frustrated, they leave. And they leave once again because they can, because we have so many choices.
Absolutely. I know you go to these conferences and you probably get a lot of Q&As that come down to problem
Sure.
solving, right? How do we
Yeah.
solve those or identify those problems if we may not have the answer to them? What's that one thing you tell?
Boy, there's so many different questions. Um, there's one thing behind most of the problems and the challenges of the questions I have. And the challenge is a mindset. The challenge is a frustration that comes from customers wanting to do what they want to do. And they get frustrated by that, right? We have a policy. Well, your customers didn't read your employee manual, right? We've created this customer journey. Here's how they research and buy and reach out and connect. And it works. And where it doesn't work, we tweak it. Because if we can have a greater level of predictability of our customer's journey, then we can budget for that, right? We have a predictability of revenue and profit and cash and all that. But our customers haven't read our employee manual. They just know how they want to do it. So oftentimes the frustrations and the questions I get during Q&A after a presentation is, what do you do about a customer who wants to do blank? Or a customer who gets frustrated and goes online and complains about something else. And I say the first thing you have to do is get over this assumption in your mind that the way you do things is the way it's supposed to be done. It's the way you do it, it's the way you've always done it, it makes sense. But if you really look at it from their perspective, right, that kind of frustration. I'll give you a really quick example. I was walking out of a hotel at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I stopped at the front desk. I said, "I'm in room 227. I need to do a late checkout, please. I got a presentation this morning." And she goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. We're not doing any late checkouts." And I said, "Oh, like I'm leaving right now." And she goes, "Yeah, we got a conference coming in, and my boss said, no late checkouts. I'm so sorry. You got to be out by noon." And I said, "I don't get off stage until noon, but I'm really close. I can be back by 12:20." Out the door by 12:30. She goes, "Yeah, I'm so sorry. If you can't," she says, it's honest to God. She says, "If you can't be out by noon, we're going to have to charge you for a second day." And then she gives me that yikes face, like, "Yikes, sorry," right? Now understand, I teach this. And so I looked at her, I said, "Okay, if you're gonna charge me for a second day, I'll just not check out. I'll just keep the room." Right? If I pay for the room, I get to keep the room. I'll just keep the room. But now you don't have a room for that conference attendee that's flying in. Is that the outcome you were looking for? And she's like, goes in the back room. She comes back. 1 o'clock would be fine. I'm like, "Yeah, you think?" Right now, but to be fair, Rory, she wanted to say yes to me. She was just told not to, because that's our policy, because it's easier for us to say no. And the reality is they're not cleaning every room at the same time. Just say yes. Right. But here's the excuse I get all the time. "Well, Dave, if she says yes to you, if we say yes to you, we have to say yes to everybody." Here's a little clue. No, you don't. You don't, because most people aren't going to ask for a special accommodation. The reason behind most of these questions and frustrations is because the business was rigid. This is our policy. This is what we do, as opposed to looking at every situation. Now, to be fair, that's scary. That's scary for companies to let their people make decisions, because they might make a bad decision. But when we restrict them, follow the policy, we also preclude them from making good decisions. Instead, we just don't like make any decisions. And there's a problem. And in almost every question, every situation, every frustration, it's because they are holding fast to, this is where you're supposed to do it. Well, I don't have to do that. I had um, my account at my bank I got locked out. My assistant had tried twice and had her password wrong, and I got locked out. And I called them and I said, "I'm locked out." And they said, "You have to change your password." I said, "I don't want to change my password. It was my assistant. I'll verify the information. I don't want to change my password. It's on all of these things." And they said, "No, you have to." And I said, "No, you don't understand. I'm not changing my password. I'm telling you it wasn't a mistake." And they said, "Yeah, well, you have to." I said, "Well, I don't have to do business here." And this literally went on for 4 days, and to the point where my wife and my assistant are like, "David, just change your password. This is for," and I'm standing on principle. And am I overreacting? Yes, Rory, yes, I was. But I wasn't going to do it. And finally, at the end of the week, I got a call from the vice president of the bank. And this is one of the top 3 banks in America. And I told her, I said, "I'm going to go on every podcast. I'm going to talk about you guys and the fact that you're making me, I don't want to do it. I've been a customer here 20 years. And she said, I have an admission to make. We don't have a mechanism to not, we didn't think of that. When we created this, if somebody put it in twice, you have to change it. We never even thought of the possibility. There is no mechanism in the program to allow us to override it and say, oh, it wasn't, right?" Because what they thought of, granted, there was a safety thing, we want to secure your accounts, but they just looked at it from their perspective. They didn't see the different scenarios. right? And so I think there's opportunities for all of us to take a step back. Don't be so rigid with your policies. Make sure there's always opportunities to say yes for pretty simple things, because you know who loves that? Your customers love that, right? Think about the example of that person at the restaurant who didn't get what they wanted because there was no menu, and they just don't come back. It was fine. They've lost the lifetime value of that customer when a simple accommodation could have locked them in for life. And so we're seeing that companies today, if you really want to be successful, you not only have to be ridiculously easy to do business with, but we're entering an age that will require an extraordinary level of flexibility and accommodation. And it's scary for some, but it's awesome when you can do it well, because your customers will love you for it.
Absolutely. You know what I love about having a podcast is having these conversations with people like yourself that,
Isn't it
yeah, that
fun?
are so good at storytelling. And I like to call this just like, this is like the appetizer, because everybody's got to check you out. They got to check out all your talks, right? The books,
Thank
right?
you. I hope they do.
No, they're gonna have to. You know what I mean? I'm gonna make sure I rant and rave about that. Where can everybody check out your books and your work as we're
Sure.
coming to the end?
Well, you can
Yeah,
learn
as
more.
we're coming to the end of the podcast and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
absolutely. You can learn about me on at davidavrin.com, and it's AV as in Victor, AVRIN, David Avrin. Just search it up. I'm everywhere, and connect with me on social media, LinkedIn, on Instagram. It's the real David Avrin. That's a whole different catfish for another day. But I agree, Rory. I think I love doing podcasts my own. I love being on others as well, because it's a chance for us to have great conversations and just invite people to listen in or watch. And so I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate not having a list of prepared questions, and just have a great conversation. But yeah, please reach out and look me up at davidavern.com. You can see what I do in my speaking and my consulting as well. And I
No,
appreciate the
no,
opportunity to
absolutely.
chat
And
today.
here's the other question I gotta ask: Are these books? Are they on
Yes.
audiobooks? Because I'm an audiobook guy, man.
Yeah, you know what? All of my books are on audio except for the brand
Okay.
new one. The new one, which is The Morning Huddle, Powerful Customer Experience Conversations to Wake You Up and Shake You Up and Win More Business. Because I actually have a video series that goes along with that at morninghuddlemembership.com. Just look up Morning Huddle Membership. And the content came, so I didn't do the audiobooks that would kind of bastardize that product. But yeah, all of them on audible.com. Just look me up. The newer ones is Why Customers Leave, and of course the Morning
No,
Huddle.
definitely.
But yeah, and I don't know if you've done it before, or if you've got books or done. It's an arduous process. So my publisher would fly me out to Western Michigan, and where the headquarters is, and you got producers across the glass, and reading your own book with no mistakes, right? You know, you mess up and then you got to go back and do whatever. It's like the most exhausting 2 days ever. But I do the same thing. I love listening to audiobooks, and especially if the author themselves are the ones that are reading, because you really get their intent as they talk about the things that matter. And so I'm all about conversation. I'm all about encouraging organizations to have conversations with their own people, with their customers, and not make assumptions that just because something worked pre-COVID, that it's going to continue to work. But I'm bullish on the future. I'm optimistic about the opportunities for those companies that pay attention. I think the new category of amenities and flexibility and accommodations and delivery is freaking awesome. I
Oh,
love it.
David, I appreciate you and I appreciate this conversation. I know that the audience is going to too, and I feel like anybody that's listening to this that's in the working world, do yourself a favor, check out this man's content, sorry. It's powerful, it's needed, it's necessary, and that's the reason why we have people in this world that are spearheading a great positive change and movement.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it very
Anytime.
much.